I've just printed it again after another cycle, and we're taking the we're increasing the intensity of the blue. Anyway, what I thought I'd do is set up the tenth indicator on the base and just measure the depth between the highs and the lows. And if I'm going to set you up with the camera in front so you can see what's going on. You're going to have to bear with me. Pissing around with a tenth indicator is not easy. So that's zeroed on a blue spot, and because of the size of the base on this, that's averaging out to the highest points on the highest of the blue spots. So if I move that now to a clear spot, and there's a bit of stiction on it there, that's what, a tenth, 1/10,000th of an inch. Another 10,000th of an inch. And that would go to 2/10. Now then, I'll get us back onto a blue spot. Well, again, there. So there's 2/10,000ths of an inch between the highs and the lows. I'm going to scan over it and see if I can find a low spot, because let's see if I can pick up this bit over it. And you can see that. That's 1/2 thou. Now that surface, we can get that little scrape mark is a small spot that's left showing the original rough scrape surface. That's 1 thou down. I'll just try and get a blue spot, see if it zeros again. The lighting is crap. Yeah, so basically we've still got some holes in there which are near as damn it 1 thou deep. If I lift you up, and I'll draw a line around it, and you can see where we were just scanning over. So if you can see that little hole there, right in the middle, and it's not easy to see, you can just about pick out, I'll get the light right on it. There, you can just about pick out the 3 little black or darker areas. They're the original rough scraping marks that have left in. So they're around about 1 thou deep to 1/2 thou, and then the blues around it. So we're going to try and film a sequence of me showing curling off this section here. I've zoomed in, and this is the 3rd take because I keep zooming in and doing scraping the wrong bit. So this is following a comment on an earlier video from Robin Renzetti, where he offers a bit of advice about the scraping motion that he was demonstrating and I was talking about in one of his videos, where he's producing the half moons. And what he was saying was there's no side to side movement as I was doing in my video, where I was rough scraping, producing big paint stripping kills. And yeah, that was really me messing about and shifting material rather than anything constructive. Over the last, I think it's about 2 weeks worth of snatching 1/2 hour here and 1 hour there, I've slowly got the motion right. Now there's a number of things happening. The blade is doing that and also moving to the next spot. and the idea is to produce crescent curl, the widest point at which is digging out the blue. Now, I've read umpteen attempted descriptions as to how this curl is produced, and some of them are downright misleading. Some of them are I can't work out what they're talking about, but one of them was you start on one corner, roll it to the middle and then roll it back to that corner. I can't do that. I start on one corner, and that looks absolutely bloody appalling. Let's just try it from my normal face. But depending on how much of a twist you give the blade and how much you push, that determines the overall size of it. And then how deep you scoop obviously sets the depth of the thing, within reason. But it is definitely a motion that takes a bit of getting used to. I mean, it's taken me, what, best part of 3.5 weeks practicing just so I can hold the handle like that. Because I can't do it like that I can't do it consistently like that, although I can do it longer. And once you get the hang of that rear grasp around the handle, it starts becoming more consistent. And at the end of the day, no matter what method you use for scraping, you want something which is consistent. Otherwise you end up doing deep scrapes and shallow scrapes on the same area, which makes it a lot longer job trying to get your high spots to line up, if you like. And I'm not doing this as a teaching program. This is me trying to learn something because I wanted to, and sharing that experience. Now, I've also read somewhere where somebody was claiming that doing it this way you can't take off a deep scrape. Well, you can, and all the normal things apply. You've got to have a sharp bit, you've got to be proficient, and you've got to decide what you want to do. Because one thing's for sure, if you want a consistent scrape, you have, it's that repetition that you're looking for. Now, if you watch when I'm doing it, now I'm lifting the blade off and coming back, and it's almost an exaggerated lift. It's not a drag back. If you watch, go back and see some of the earlier footage where I show Chris, his blade barely leaves the surface. It's a much more energy efficient approach, but then he's got 50 years of practice, hasn't he? A career on it. I've also read a lot of stuff about querying the radius on the end of the tool, and I mean, for want of a better phrase, it ain't flat, but it's not bloody far off. It's certainly not 50 or 60 mil radius. I will get my jigs out and see if I can actually get a measurement off it. I've also read, you know, would a compound radius where it's larger on the ends, and yeah, I think that's probably a little bit tighter radius towards the edges, and that's to stop it digging in. But if you actually slow this down, and I might try and slow a bit down on the video when I put it together for YouTube, you're not using the whole edge, you're only using a portion of it. So it does enable you to kind of rock your approach. So one ground edge that long, and you might use that bit, then the middle bit, and then that bit. So you've effectively got 3 blades in one edge. You flip it over and you've got another 3. all depends on how wide that cut is that you want. Anyway, take a look at Robin Renzetti's video where he's resurfacing a straight edge for, no, not a straight edge, a spirit level for Tom Lipton at Ox Tools, and read through the comments. There's an awful lot of information buried in these YouTube comments. There's also a lot of rubbish as well, but engage your brain before you stick it away in the long-term storage facility. Now, what I can say at the moment is, irrespective of the style of scraping that you're doing, in my experience, trying to shift 3/1000 material scraping is a lot of work, and I would suggest that the majority of my work on this plate has been getting it down to being level, and I'm now at level, and I'm just still dropping it down to bring back these deeper holes, which I self-inflicted doing an inconsistent scrape on a roughing pass. Dug a hole, if you like. The more I do this, the more I do feel that the approach demonstrated and taught by the likes of Richard King, there's an awful lot of logic applied to that, and the approach is much more methodical. Now that's probably because I don't know the theory behind the procedure for approaching this kind of thing, and they all have similar elements. You know, you get it flat, you test it for hinging, you get you something like that, and then you start bringing it down. But obviously, if you look back through some of my earlier videos where I'm scraping in the shaper, I just basically, I didn't do random rough scrapes. I started at one edge and did lines across. So within 3 passes, I'm already getting a checkerboard. And I got quite a lot of comments saying, "Oh, you don't need to do that, just do it randomly till you get it right." And that's true, you don't. But it's a shitload easier trying to keep track of where you're at. So to me, that worked quite easily, and I could do a 2-inch deep, 2-inch long scrape, and get 1/2 thou to 3/4 thou deep, much more consistently, working like backwards and forwards across, leaving them a scrape apart, than doing a bit there, then a bit there, and then a bit there. I don't know. It's just, I guess, what you do, what works for you. The rough scraping's where you save your time if you get it right. It's highly probable that my rough scraping is not as efficient as the more random pattern. And take a look at Wes Johnson's channel. You can see some of the rough scraping he does, and you know, it's pretty quick. I don't know, you do what works for you, basically. I tend to do something that is repetitive because it helps me gain a consistent approach on things. I'm still chipping away. I've been trying some different styles of curling. I'm basically taking the level down. I'll show you some close-up of it. So we're getting a reasonable distribution. It's still a long way short of the points per inch, but I've got a couple of small holes still. See if I can find things. Where the hell is it? There's one. That section there's it's about 3/8 of an inch across. There's another one there, and about 3/8 of an inch across, and about 3/10 shallower than the lowest points on the other section. So I'm just keep going over it. And I'm more in trying to develop a consistent curl. So if you have a look at this, you can see where it almost looks like it's flaked. That was just to give me some practice going across, and I went across the whole shebang with it. I got some comments off Chris, and it's easier if I draw it, but if you look, if you follow this curve around, it's basically that, yeah, which is, for all intents and purposes, an inch between the points. And what Chris is saying is, as I get better, I should be able to actually produce that as more as that shape, right? So a shorter tail, and the tail comes from the degree of twist that you put through the blade. He's been working on refining his parallel, so he refers to this stage as intensifying it. So he's gone from producing a curl about an inch across to one which is around about 3/8 of an inch, just taking off the blues. Now we had it up on the stone again and measured. My stone's 24 inches long and this is 30 inches, so spanning as much of it on the stone as we could. DTI set in the middle on a high point, zeroed, and we got plus or minus 1/10 on it, moving it along. And what he's trying to do is get it so that there's basically, you can't see, other than the flutter of it going up and down the scrape marks, that there's no actual movement. So he's not a million miles off, but it's taking a frustrating amount of time to get it there, because once that's sorted, the next thing is then that straight edge, and once that's sorted, it's then do that one. I'm under the impression that that's going to take the longest, which is why he needs this absolutely spot on, and then printing that one to it, I'm hoping should be a far quicker job. He keeps coming round with small items of his tooling and refurbishing them. I think that was a Brown and Smart, if I remember. He's got the rule for it somewhere. And he dug out another couple of another two 18-inch Hilger Watts levels in pretty crappy states. So I've had the boxes out and drying them, and he's got a ticking up the bases on those. I think their resolution on those is 1/2 thou per 10 inches from memory. Upside down, just for ease, yeah. As opposed to the first one we had, which was in slightly better nick, which was 1 thou per 10 inches. So that's where we're at. I have to say, getting a bit tedious now. Well, we've had a break for a few days while we did some other jobs, and we're back on to picking out the dots on this. It's averaging out around now about 15 points per inch on a very light printing, fairly evenly distributed. So I'm just going back over and working them off. I'm standing over this side because it gives me the better light, so we'll put it into time lapse and see what you think. I'm supposed to be producing a curl which is around about 3/8 of an inch end to end across the cord, if you like. And it is, but it's also very quite a long V shape. So we'll try and tweak what we're doing. I know I might sound very negative on my learning process of this, but you have to temper that with the fact I've never scraped this size of surface before, let alone a surface plate. It's a lot easier to cover something that is only a couple of inches wide. Might be 3 feet long, like a straight edge. But if you do take a 30-inch long straight edge, 2 inches wide, that's 60 square inches. Compare that with 18 by 18, and it's a factor of 10 more, isn't it? So I mean, by definition, it's going to take longer to get the same number of points per inch, because each one of those points is generated by a scrape. I can certainly see why granite stones are popular. You've got it on a sky hook, so we're working basically that area. So this is the print after the last scrape, or the rub. There's a few low spots. Most noticeably that one. But it's getting better each rub. Well, this is rub or print number 733. We're 3 years in, and we're getting there. A bit dense in that area, not so dense there. Bit of high density in that area, and lower there. Rather dense over that area. I have actually lost count of how many cycles we've done now. I'm trying to, instead of sticking at it for 3 and 4 hours, I'm trying to do an hour then leave it. Keep myself in the right frame of mind. There is still a, you can just see the red tinge there. It's just, if I get the light on it right, just about see a bit of blue beginning to pick up on it. And that's I don't know, 3/8 of an inch across. I've had run a DTI over it, and basically everywhere I'm getting needle flutter of about 1/10 and a half, so plus or minus 3/4 of a tenth. But in principle, on a blue spot, if that's 0, I'm dropping down just under 2/10 for the scrape line. The only spot is that, and that goes down to about 4/10 at its deepest point, which I can barely get the needle into, or the stylus. It's starting to look a bit more even with reducing the curl size, but I'm struggling to get it much smaller. And what I'm finding is that the edge of the carbide scraper is breaking down before I've done a full cycle, which is just highlighting the need for a better jig, or at least a jig, so that I can get a consistent angle and profile, and that enables me to get a more consistent curl. And now we'll stick it on the plate and have a print. So I've glued the plate up with a very small amount of ink. Set the plate with my hand. And what you get is a kind of float until the air comes out that's trapped underneath. I remember watching Muller Nick's video, I think it's called Will It Float, and he scoots a small plate about that side over a surface table, skidding it across like a nice hockey puck, and then as the air comes out, it's sucking down now. And I'm not pressing on it, I'm just letting its own weight do the thing. Ooh. And then we have to lever it up. It is appalling trying to spot the blueprint with the lighting I've got, but that's getting pretty damn even now. If I'd screwed the plate round on the stone a bit and took it in that direction, you see, I don't know whether you can see, but you can see how the ink's dragged from the contact point across. Well, by doing it the other way you can get a more defined point, but the time it's sucked onto the plate it's not easy to do. Well, I just sampled it after the print. Now bearing in mind that end is the free end and this end is what I'm pulling and pushing, that end of the plate definitely got more ink on it. So I've got 31 points per inch, and that's pretty even all the way across. 26, 28, 26, I can't remember what that one was, 26 in the corner, down to 21 here. But there's actually there's no, I can't subtly see a surface difference, but there's less ink pickup on this end, which I think is down to ink on the plate. There's 23. So what I'm going to do now is re-blue the plate, clean this off, and then print it again, but pulling and pushing from that end, and see what kind of difference that makes. So I haven't scraped it again. That's basically I've reversed the plate so that this end was the pulling and pushing, which on the previous print was the end with the least ink on it, and that distribution's fine. So we're looking at somewhere in the region of 26 to 30 points per inch. And when I've run a DTI over it, I've got 2/10 total depth from the surface plane, averaging out at around about 1/10,000th. Right, time for a cup of tea.